So here's a question for you. How can a band be one of the absolute biggest in the world, and at the very same time, one of the most hated by critics? Well, that is the unbelievable story of Stone Temple Pilots, a band that lived this crazy paradox of being massively popular while getting just completely torn apart by the press. Okay, let's get into this.
This right here, this is the image that's burned into so many people's minds. You've got Scott Weiland, Dean DeLeo, Robert DeLeo, and Eric Kretz. In the early 90s, man, they looked, they sounded, they felt like the biggest rock stars on the entire planet.
And look, they had the numbers to back it up. We're talking 40 million records sold worldwide. This was not some small, niche act. This was a full-blown global phenomenon.
And this slide right here, this says it all. It perfectly captures that great divide. In the same magazine, Rolling Stone, in the exact same year, the readers, the fans, voted them Best New Band. At the same time, the magazine's own critics voted them Worst New Band. I mean, how does that even happen? It's just a wild contradiction, and it's what defined their whole early career.
So to really understand this, we've got to go back to the very beginning. We need to see how their first album, their core sound, didn't just get released, it absolutely detonated on the scene. The speed of their rise is just dizzying. Seriously, look at this. They get together in '89, they land a major record deal, and by '92, their debut album, Core, is out. And then just 2 years after that, their second album, Purple, debuts at #1, right out of the gate. That's a truly meteoric rise.
And Core? Well, Core was an absolute monster. 8 times platinum. You couldn't escape it. It gave us these massive hits like Plush and Creep that you heard on the radio constantly. It really was the sound of rock at that time.
But here it comes, the backlash. Almost immediately, the critics slapped a label on them. They were seen as fakes, as grunge imitators, just trying to cash in on the whole Seattle scene, riding the coattails of bands like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains.
So you've got this crazy tension, right? Huge success on one side and this critical beatdown on the other. And that really sets the stage for the band's next chapter, which was way, way more turbulent. It was a period of incredible artistic growth happening right alongside a totally devastating personal collapse.
And here's the thing. They refused to stay in that grunge box critics tried to put them in. Their music became so much more interesting, so diverse. They started pulling from psychedelic rock, glam rock, jangle pop, even bossa nova. They were actively showing everybody they were so much more than just one thing.
But while they were getting more creative than ever, the band itself was starting to come apart. Frontman Scott Weiland's struggles with addiction became very public, and they started to take a serious toll. Tours were getting canceled, tensions inside the band were getting worse and worse.
And it all just boiled over in 2003. After a reported fight between guitarists Dean DeLeo and Weiland, that was it. The band officially broke up. They all went their separate ways, and they actually formed these other amazing supergroups, Weiland with Velvet Revolutor, and the DeLeo brothers with Army of Anyone. But if you think that was the end of the story, you would be wrong. What came next was this cycle of reunions that gave everyone hope, only to be followed by another huge split, and then ultimately just profound tragedy.
Man, this timeline, it's just gut-wrenching to look at. So after getting back together, the band officially fires Scott Weiland in 2013. The incredible Chester Bennington from Linkin Park steps in to fill these massive shoes. But then, just unimaginable loss strikes. In 2015, Scott Weiland tragically dies from an accidental overdose. And then, in a completely heartbreaking turn just 2 years later, Chester Bennington also died.
So you can really see the two eras of the band right here. On the left, of course, is the iconic original voice Scott Weiland, and on the right, that's Jeff Gutt, the singer who took on the immense, almost impossible task of fronting the band after so much loss, joining them in 2017.
So you have to ask yourself, after all that tragedy, how does a band even continue? Well, what STP did was pretty remarkable. They launched an open online audition to find their new frontman. It was this really public way of saying, we are determined to keep this going.
And that determination, that brings us to the final chapter in our explainer today. A real rebirth for the band and a long, long overdue rewriting of their legacy. This is the part of the story where the critics finally started to see what millions of fans knew all along.
And the change in tone is just night and day. Listen to this. In a later review, the really influential critic Stephen Thomas Erlewine from AllMusic called them, quote, the best straight-ahead rock singles outfit of their time. I mean, that is a universe away from being called imitators.
But this one might be the most powerful statement of all. It's from Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, one of their biggest peers from that era. He publicly said, I confessed to Scott, as well as the band many times, how wrong I'd been in assessing their native brilliance. Wow, what an incredible admission of respect from someone who was once a critic.
So when you strip away all the opinions, all the drama, what are you left with? The facts, the numbers, and they don't lie. 40 million records, 16 top 10 singles, 8 #1 hits, and a Grammy Award. The legacy is just undeniable.
So you see, the story of Stone Temple Pilots isn't just about a rock band. It's about perception. It's about resilience. And it leaves us with this really fascinating question to think about. What really happens to a band's legacy when the critics finally catch up to the fans?